The Queen's challenge, the war had ended. Smoke still rose from the battlefield. Bodies of machines and fallen warriors, both alien and human, lay silent. The last enemy ship had fallen from the sky just moments ago. The Xerix Empire had won, but they hadn't won alone. Among the brave who stood tall was Ethan Cole, a human soldier with dirt on his face and fire in his eyes. He didn't wear a crown or medals, just blood, sweat, and a half-broken plasma rifle hanging from his shoulder, and yet every eye turned to him. He had done something impossible. When the front line was breaking, Ethan had led a charge through enemy fire, saved 3 Xerix units, and destroyed the enemy's core ship using only grenades and raw courage. Now, inside the grand war hall of the Xerix capital ship, the warriors gathered. Tall alien figures stood on either side. Glowing blue torches lit the hall. The walls were silver and marked with ancient carvings of past battles. Then she entered, the alien queen, Izara, the undying flame. She was tall and graceful. Her skin shimmered like violet crystal. Her golden crown had moving wings of light. She did not walk, she glided. The crowd fell silent. No one dared speak until she gave permission. Her voice echoed like music and thunder. A human led the charge. A human saved my soldiers, and by ancient law, I must honor the one who shows the greatest bravery. Ethan stepped forward, awkward, but calm. His armor was cracked. One boot had a hole in it, but his eyes didn't shake. Izara raised one perfect hand. Name your reward, human. Ask for riches, power, ships, anything, and I shall grant it. The chamber waited. Whispers spread. Would he ask for land? A command post? Immortality? Ethan looked around. Then he looked up, straight at the Queen. Everyone expected him to bow. He didn't. I want something else, he said. Izara's eyes narrowed slightly. Speak it. He took a deep breath. I choose. You. The room froze. For 5 full seconds no one moved. Even the royal guards flinched. One reached for his weapon. Izara tilted her head. Explain. You said I could have anything, Ethan said, voice steady. I choose you. Not your crown. Not your empire. Just you. The silence turned into tension. A wave of shocked gasps echoed through the hall. Izara's voice dropped, now colder. You dare mock me? I don't mock, Ethan replied. You made a promise. I gave everything on that battlefield. I could have asked for anything. I asked for you. One of her generals shouted, He insults your honor. But the Queen raised her hand again. Silence. She stepped closer to Ethan. Her golden eyes glowed. Do you think a queen is something you can claim? I don't want a queen, Ethan said softly. I want the person beneath all this. Her expression changed. A flicker of confusion, maybe curiosity. She turned to her council. By the law of old blood, my vow must be honored, but I may set conditions. The crowd murmured. She turned back to Ethan, her voice sharp and commanding. 3 trials, mind, heart, beast. If you pass them then, and only then, I will grant your wish. Ethan smiled. Done. She blinked. You agree so easily? I've fought worse things than trials. The Queen leaned forward. Her breath smelled like alien flowers. Her voice was a whisper now, for Ethan's ears alone. You don't know what you've asked for, human. He looked her in the eyes. Neither do you. Then she turned, her cloak flowing like starlight behind her. Let the trials begin, she said. The crowd roared, some in anger, some in awe. But Queen Izara didn't look back. Her heart was beating harder than it had in years. Why would a human choose me? And deep inside, a small voice whispered, why do I care? The deal no one dared to make. Ethan's answer echoed in the Queen's mind long after the hall had cleared. I choose you. No one had ever said that to her before, not like that. not without fear or desire for power. Inside her private chamber, Queen Ysara paced slowly, her hands behind her back. The chamber was lit by soft blue crystals. The ceiling was covered with moving stars, simulated to reflect her home planet's sky. A group of her advisors stood in silence. Their faces were tight with concern. "Your Majesty," said the High Strategist, "the human has humiliated you. This cannot be allowed." Another added, "He must be punished. A queen is not a prize." Ysara raised her hand. "He followed our laws. I made the vow. I will not break my word." The advisors looked at each other in disbelief. "Then, reject him. Deny the wish." But Ysara turned to the window. From there she could see the soldier Ethan standing alone in the garden, still in his damaged armor, talking calmly to a young Xyrix child who wasn't afraid of him. "No," she said at last. "He will face the trials." The room fell, silent. "But Your Majesty," the priestess spoke carefully, "no outsider has ever passed them." Ysara's voice was sharp now. "Then we shall see if he is truly worthy." That night, Ethan stood before the queen again. She had changed her appearance. Her golden crown was gone, her royal cloak replaced with simple armor. Still beautiful, still powerful, but different. "I offer you a final chance to back down," she said. Ethan crossed his arms. "I thought queens didn't bluff." Her eye twitched. "You enjoy challenging me." "Only because you look like you've never been challenged." For a moment her royal mask cracked. A small smile touched her lips but vanished quickly. "Fine," she said. "The first trial begins tomorrow at dawn." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And if I pass all three?" She turned away. "Then you will have what you asked for." The next morning, Ethan woke up in a new room. Not a prison cell, not a palace suite. It was a cold, silent cube made of black stone. One wall suddenly flickered, showing a hologram of the queen. She stared at him through the image. Her voice was calm. "This is the trial of the mind. You must pass through the labyrinth of echoes. No weapons, no help, only your mind." Before he could ask what that meant, the floor vanished beneath him and he fell. He landed on something soft. The room was dark. Shapes moved in the corners. A dim blue light pulsed from the walls. And then, the whispers began. They weren't alien voices. They were his own. "You failed your squad. You let her die. You don't belong here." Ethan stepped forward. The walls shifted. Every turn looked the same. Every path led to another memory. Some real, some twisted. He saw himself in battle. His best friend dying. A mission gone. Wrong. His mother crying. It was a maze made of guilt and regret. But Ethan didn't break. He spoke out loud. "Yeah, I've made mistakes. I've lost people. But I kept going." The whispers got louder. The walls closed in. He touched one. It turned into a mirror. Inside he saw himself, but younger, cleaner, before war. "I'm still me," he said, "even with the pain." Suddenly, a door opened. Outside the viewing chamber, Queen Ysara watched the trial on a floating screen. Most candidates screamed. Some gave up. Some never made it out. But Ethan, he walked out calm, breathing hard but still steady. She felt something in her chest. "Strange, interesting," she whispered. Back in the palace, Ethan stood before her again. His face was pale, his eyes heavy, but determined. "That was just your warm-up?" he said with a tired smile. Ysara didn't smile back. But inside, she was shaken. This wasn't just a man. This was someone dangerous. Not to her throne, but to the walls around her heart, and that was more terrifying than any war. Trial of the heart. The next morning, the palace was quiet. A storm rolled across the sky above the Xyrix capital. Red lightning flashed behind black clouds, and thunder rumbled like drums of war. But inside the palace, one chamber glowed with golden light. There stood Queen Izara, her expression unreadable. Before her knelt Ethan, still bruised from the mind trial. "You passed the first test, human," she said. "But this one will not test your brain. It will test something deeper." Ethan stood slowly. "You mean the heart?" She nodded. "The second trial begins now." Ethan opened his eyes and found himself alone in a small metal room. The walls were smooth, with no door. The air was heavy. A soft, slow hum filled the space. Then suddenly a screen lit up on the wall in front of him, and he saw her, his sister. But that was impossible. She had died during Earth's siege 2 years ago. She was smiling, standing in a sunny field, waving at him. "Ethan," she said, "I missed you. Why haven't you come home?" His eyes went wide. "No, this isn't real." More screens turned on. His old squad mates, a girl he once loved, his father who he hadn't seen since childhood. Each voice called out, laughing, crying, begging. "Come back. You left us. You're all alone now." Back in the royal control room, Queen Izara watched Ethan through a glowing crystal orb. "This trial pulls from his memories," said her spiritual advisor. "His deepest wounds, his regrets." Izara stared at the screen. "What is the goal?" "To walk through the pain without breaking," the priestess said. "If his heart shatters, he fails." Inside the room, Ethan fell to his knees. He saw himself standing at his sister's grave. He saw his commander screaming as their ship went down. He saw himself holding a dying child in a burned-out village. His voice cracked. "Why, do you show me this?" A new door opened. He stood slowly. He entered a long hallway. On either side, memories came to life. He relived betrayal, helplessness, the look in the eyes of people he couldn't save. One image after another. Real pain. Real loss. But then came something new. He saw Queen Izara, trapped in a cage. Her crown gone, her eyes full of fear. "What is this?" he whispered. The real Izara, watching from afar, leaned forward. "I've never seen that memory before," she said quietly. In the trial room, the image of her spoke. "I'm not your enemy, Ethan. I've just been alone, like you." He stepped closer. "You're not real." The illusion smiled sadly. "No, but the feelings are." He hesitated. "Why show me your pain?" Then the illusion faded. The lights turned red. A voice boomed in the chamber. "To understand another is the greatest strength of the heart." Suddenly, the floor beneath him began to collapse. He had only seconds to jump. As he leapt forward, a small alien child appeared, crying, alone, about to fall into the pit. Ethan didn't even think. He grabbed the child and threw them to safety, just before he dropped into darkness. Back in the viewing room, the queen stood up in shock. "He saved an illusion," the priestess said. "He risked everything for something he believed was real," Izara whispered. He didn't hesitate. The priestess turned to her. "You feel it too, don't you?" Izara didn't answer, but her fingers trembled. Ethan hit the ground hard, but landed in a different room. A golden light surrounded him. He was breathing fast. His hands shook. But he was alive. He looked around. A single word appeared on the wall. Compassion. Later that night, he stood again before the queen. "I thought, this was a heart trial," he said, tired but standing tall. "But it felt like I saw your pain too." Izara didn't speak at first. Then softly she said, "The trials reveal more than we intend." He smiled. "So are you ready to call it now? 2 for 2? She stepped forward, closer than before. "You're not what I expected, human. You make me question myself." He looked into her golden eyes. Good. Her lips parted, but she said nothing more. She turned away. The final trial begins tomorrow. Prepare. But as she walked off, her heart beat faster than ever before. Why does he care? And more importantly, why do I want him to? Trial of the Beast. The third morning came with thunder. Dark clouds circled the alien palace. In the sky, flocks of flying beasts screamed and scattered. Even the guards looked nervous. Something dangerous was coming. Ethan stood alone on a large stone platform outside the palace. His armor had been repaired, but he still carried scratches from the last trials. He watched as torches lit up around the circle. Queen Izara appeared, high above on a balcony. She wore silver armor now, no crown, no flowing robes, just steel and silence. This is the final trial. Her voice echoed across the stone. Trial of the Beast. She paused. You will face my empire's guardian. It fears nothing, it kills everything, Ethan smirked. Sounds like my kind of pet, but no one laughed. The ground rumbled, chains clanked below the platform, stone doors opened. A growl rolled out like thunder in a cave. Then it appeared. The creature was massive, at least 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in obsidian black, scales glowing red underneath. 4 clawed legs, 2 glowing eyes, and smoke rising from its mouth. A bioengineered monster known as the Rithazar. Every soldier in the Queen's army feared it. It had never lost a fight. Ethan didn't move. He whispered, All right, big guy. Let's dance. The Rithazar roared and charged. Ethan rolled to the side, barely avoiding the claws. He didn't have heavy weapons, only a short blade, a stun, rod, and his wits. He ran around the edge of the arena, dodging swipe after swipe. The Queen watched silently. Her hand clutched the railing. Why is he not attacking? One of her guards asked. She narrowed her eyes. He's watching, learning. And she was right. Ethan didn't fight like her people. He didn't use brute force. He waited, studied, noticed how the creature's eyes flickered before each strike, saw that its right leg dragged slightly, a weakness. He moved in, slashed the back leg. The beast howled. Back in the arena, the creature turned and swung its tail. Ethan flew through. The air slammed into a wall. Blood came from his mouth, but he stood again. He didn't stop. He ran straight toward the beast, dodging, sliding under it, climbing its back, using the stun rod to hit a nerve point at the base of its skull. The creature dropped to its knees, groaning in pain, but Ethan didn't kill it. He jumped down, walked in front of it, dropped his weapon, and then he reached out and placed a hand on its snout. The beast growled, but didn't strike. Ethan looked it in the eye and said, I don't want to kill you. High above, the Queen gasped. The audience, watching in silence, now whispered in awe. No one has ever spared the Rithazar, the priestess whispered. Izara didn't speak. She felt her chest tighten. Back on the platform, the beast slowly pulled back, breathing hard. Then it lowered its head, bowed. The Queen raised her hand. The trial is complete. The platform lights turned white. Medics rushed in. Ethan stumbled to the side, blood running from his arm. One soldier tried to help him stand. Ethan waved him off. He looked up at the balcony and gave a tired grin. I passed your test, Your Highness. Later, in the royal healing chamber. Queen Izara entered alone. Ethan lay on a bed, shirt off, bandaged. She stood quietly. He turned his head and gave a weak smile. Let me guess. Now I have to wrestle a dragon and read ancient poetry? She didn't smile. Instead, she walked to him and sat beside the bed. You spared the beast, she said. He nodded. It didn't want to die, it was just doing what it was trained to do. She looked at him for a long time. No one has shown mercy in that trial, not in hundreds of years. He looked at her, calm. I didn't come here to win trophies. I just wanted to know if you were real, not just a title or armor. That made her pause. Then, softly, She said something she had never said to any being before. You've passed all 3 trials. Ethan sat up, surprised. So that's it? No, she said, standing. Now comes the real question. He tilted his head. She looked down at him, her golden eyes soft. Why did you choose me, Ethan? The smile on his face faded. He looked her in the eye and spoke, voice quiet but full of truth. Because I saw someone strong, but lonely. Someone locked behind 1,000 walls. I wanted to knock just one of them down. She turned away quickly, but not fast enough. He saw the shimmer in her eyes. The Queen's decision. The palace was too quiet. Queen Izara sat on her throne, but her hands gripped the armrests tightly. Her golden crown felt heavier than ever. The throne room was full. Advisors, generals, nobles, all waiting for her decision. Before her stood Ethan. His wounds were healed, but he looked tired. Yet even in front of so many powerful aliens, he didn't look afraid. He met the Queen's eyes directly. You promised one wish, he said. I passed your trials. The room stirred with whispers. Some aliens glared at him. Others looked confused. A few, curious. An elder stepped forward. Your Majesty, we strongly advise against this. A human cannot walk beside the Queen. He has no title, no bloodline. A general added, it will weaken the throne. The Empire will see it as surrender. But Izara didn't speak, not yet. Her heart was beating faster. She looked at Ethan, standing tall, calm, honest. She remembered his words after the beast trial. I didn't come to win trophies. I just wanted to know if you were real. That sentence had stayed with her, echoed in her mind when she was alone. Now she stood. She looked out at the court. He asked for me, not as queen, but as a person. Gasps echoed through the hall. The Queen continued. He faced fear, pain, and death, not for power, but for understanding. He has more honor than half the nobles in this room. One noble shouted, but he is a human. Izara turned sharply. A human who risked everything, and never asked for more than I was willing to give. Her voice softened. He did not take my heart. I gave it. The room fell completely silent. Later that evening, Ethan was brought to her private garden. There were no guards, no armor, just him and her. She wore a simple silk gown, no crown, no weapons, just Izara. Ethan stepped forward slowly. So, did I pass the final trial? She looked up at the sky, twin moons glowing above. I don't know, she said, softly. Maybe I did. He walked closer, now standing just a few feet from her. I meant it, he said. Every word. She turned to face him. Her eyes glowed faintly. You don't even know what loving me means, Ethan. My enemies would target you. My people may reject you. I'm used to being targeted, he said. But I'm not used to someone who matters actually seeing me. She stepped closer. I was raised to rule, not feel. Everything in me says I should push you away. He didn't move. Then why haven't you? She stopped. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see a queen. You saw a woman, and I didn't know how much I needed that until you did. Their hands touched. She didn't pull away. The next day, the Queen stood before the people of the Xyrix Empire. She spoke with strength, her voice reaching across planets. I granted my word. He passed every trial. And now, I grant him my heart. Ethan stood beside her, not as a servant, not as a soldier, as her equal. Some protested, but others cheered. A new era was beginning, not of thrones and war, but of trust, of two worlds coming closer. That night, in the quiet of her chamber, Izara asked softly, Was this your plan all along? To win the heart of a queen? Ethan smiled, leaning against the balcony. No. I only planned to know if you had a heart. She smiled, real, soft, and full of something she had long buried. Then I guess you won the greatest battle of all. He turned to her. And I'm not done fighting. Not until you believe you're more than your crown. She looked at him, and for the first time in her life, Izara, the queen, the warrior, the untouchable ruler, felt safe. The royal storm lightning cracked across the sky. The Xerix capital was under lockdown. Soldiers lined the palace walls. The air was thick with tension. Inside the royal court, voices clashed like swords. This cannot stand. He is not one of us. This human has poisoned the queen's judgment. Queen Izara sat tall on her throne, eyes glowing with calm fire. Ethan stood beside her, silent, but watchful. The royal council was in chaos. Even some of her most loyal advisors had turned against her. We warned you, growled General Kavor, slamming his fist on the stone floor. The moment you gave your heart to that outsider, you made the empire weak. Izara's voice cut through the noise like a blade. No, I showed the empire what strength truly is. But the storm had already begun. Later that evening, Ethan paced the queen's private chamber. Why are they turning on you? He asked. I followed your rules. I won fair. Izara stood by the window watching the rain fall on the garden. Her shoulders were tense. They don't hate you, Ethan, she said. They fear change. For generations, Xerix rulers have never shared their rule. Love is seen as a weakness. He stepped closer. Do you believe that? She turned slowly. I used to. He reached for her hand. Then what do you believe now? She looked at him, and for a moment, the queen was gone. Only the woman remained. Now I believe you're the only one who sees me as more than my crown. But in the shadows of the palace, betrayal was already moving. 3 noble houses had formed a secret pact. In a dark hall below the city, they met with cloaked warriors. We strike tonight, one whispered. She is distracted. Her defenses are down. Another added, the human dies first. She will break after that. They activated a hidden beacon, calling mercenaries from beyond the stars. A silent fleet began its approach. Back in the palace, Izara and Ethan sat together under the garden dome. He looked up at the stars. You ever think we'd be here? She smiled softly. No, I never thought I'd let someone in. Ethan turned to her. You didn't just let me in. You made me feel like I belong, like I'm not just a soldier. She touched his face gently. You're more than a soldier. You're my anchor. But then, alarms rang through the palace. The sky turned red. Explosions echoed in the distance. A guard ran in. Your Majesty, the palace is under attack. Rebel forces from inside the council, led by House Draylen and mercenaries, are moving on the throne room. Izara's face hardened. The queen returned in full. Get Ethan to the escape tunnel, she ordered. But Ethan stepped forward. No, I'm staying with you. This is my fight, she said. He looked her dead in the eye. Then let me fight it with you. The palace halls turned into a battlefield. Flashes of plasma fire lit the stone walls. Ethan moved like a ghost through enemy lines, taking down mercenaries with quiet speed. He wasn't just brave, he was smart, tactical, fast. Beside him, Izara fought with glowing blades, one in each hand. She moved like fire and wind, never pausing. Together they pushed through the rebel wave. At the throne room doors they found General Kavor himself. Blade drawn, armor glowing. You should have stayed a myth, human, he growled. Ethan raised his blade. You should have stayed loyal. They clashed. Sparks flew. Izara held back the guards while Ethan fought the general one-on-one. The sound of metal and breath filled the chamber. Kavor was bigger, stronger, but Ethan was faster and more determined. In a final move, Ethan used the general's weight against him, flipped him over and disarmed him. He stood over the fallen warrior. I didn't come for war, but I won't let anyone take her from me. Later, as the fires died and the loyal guards retook control, the queen stood at the center of the throne room. She looked at her people. Many had doubted her, many still did. But after what they saw, after watching her and a human fight side by side, some were beginning to believe. She stepped beside Ethan and took his hand, publicly. "I will not rule with fear," she said. "I will rule with truth, and this man, this human, is my truth." The hall was silent. Then slowly, a few soldiers placed fists to their chests, then more, until the hall bowed. A crown shared, a galaxy changed. The fires had burned out. Smoke drifted over the palace towers like ghosts of the past. The attack had been crushed. The traitors were either captured or fled. The people of the Xyrix Empire waited with uncertain eyes. They had seen something they could never forget. A human, bleeding, bruised, standing side by side with their untouchable queen. But peace was not guaranteed. Not yet. Ethan sat alone in a quiet healing chamber. His right arm was wrapped tight. The cut above his brow had just been stitched. The medics had left him alone at his request. He stared at the wall, silent, thoughtful. He had won every trial, defeated the queen's most feared general, saved her life in the halls of her own palace, and yet, he didn't feel victorious. He felt uncertain. Would she still choose him, now that the galaxy had watched? The door opened behind him. He didn't turn. He knew the sound of her steps now. Graceful, calm, with hidden weight. Queenie Zara entered without her crown. No armor, no guards. Just her. She stood behind him for a long moment, then sat beside him in silence. He finally asked, "Was it worth it?" She didn't answer at first. Then quietly she said, "Everything inside me screamed to run away from you." Ethan looked at her. She continued, voice soft. "Not because I didn't want you, but because I did. And that made me feel weak." He smiled a little. "You've never been weak." She shook her head. "No, but I've been alone. For so long that I forgot what it felt like. To be seen." She placed a hand on his. "I see you, Ethan. And I want you beside me. Not as a prize, not as a political move, but as my partner." He stared into her golden eyes. "Even if the Empire turns against you?" he asked. She leaned forward. "Let them try." They kissed, softly at first, then like two people who had fought through storms just to find each other. Days later, the Queen called a full assembly of the Empire. The sky above the capital turned purple with ceremonial lights. Massive banners fell from the towers, showing the royal crest alongside a new symbol, the Earth Star. Aliens of every rank, color, and class gathered in the city square, their eyes on the balcony above. Izara stepped forward, now wearing a new crown, one lighter, elegant, reshaped, not to command, but to share. Ethan stood beside her, dressed not in armor but ceremonial robes of honor gifted by the Xyrix artisans. She raised her hand and the crowd fell silent. The Empire has lived under fear for too long. Fear of weakness, fear of difference, but that fear ends today. She gestured to Ethan. This human risked his life not to rule, not to conquer, but to understand. He saw me, not as a queen, but as a woman. And through him I found the strength to become more than a title. The crowd was still, watching, waiting. Today I name him not my servant, not my pet, not even my consort. I name him my equal, my chosen, my heart. Gasps, murmurs. Then, a quiet wave of claps began, then louder, then a full cheer. Some knelt, some saluted. For the first time in Xyrix history, the throne was shared, but not everyone celebrated. In the deep shadows of the outer worlds, old enemies stirred, watching the human influence grow, watching the Xyrix grow closer to Earth, watching their control slip, An old rival empire, known only as the Varn, sent a signal across stars. The queen has betrayed her kind. It is time to remind her of the old ways. A fleet began to gather. Back at the palace, Izura stood with Ethan in her private garden. The moonlight touched their faces. She leaned into his shoulder. "They'll come for us." He nodded. "Let them." She smirked. "You think you can fight a war again?" "I don't need to fight it alone," he said. She looked at him. "No, you don't." He turned to her. "Then let's do what hasn't been done." She raised a brow. "Which is?" He smiled. "Let's unite Earth and Xyrix." She froze. In all her life, no one had dared suggest such a thing, but with Ethan beside her, it didn't sound crazy. It sounded possible. And so they did. It began with messages sent to Earth, then alliances, then mixed teams of Xyrix and humans working side by side. Engineers, soldiers, scientists. Trade opened. Cultures crossed. A human boy taught Xyrix warriors how to make fire bread. A Xyrix artist painted Earth sunsets using glowing crystal dye. A human doctor healed a Xyrix child and was named Lifebringer by her village. For the first time in memory, two species stopped fearing each other, because two people, a queen and a soldier, dared to love in the open. Months passed. In a secret ceremony under both stars and moons, Izara and Ethan stood before their closest circle. They wore no royal outfits, no weapons, just simple robes and the matching mark of unity carved into their palms, a symbol that glowed when they held hands. As they spoke their vows, neither mentioned power, duty, or politics. They spoke only of choices. And they chose each other again and again and again. Years later, stories would be told. Children would ask, "Is it true that a human won the queen's heart by passing 3 impossible trials?" And the answer would always be, yes, but he truly won when he chose her, not her crown. And when someone would ask what changed the galaxy, the elders would smile and say, "A single moment when a human said, 'I choose you.'"